Hi, welcome to Tony's Quick Tips. One of the challenges that a lot of advisors have, particularly those working in risk management, is trying to convince clients of what is an appropriate amount of cover. Now, there's a couple of ways we can go about it, and of course with regulation and compliance, there's been an increasing tendency for advisors to focus on the analytical approach. And one of the things that I suggest is worth doing with clients is saying to them right up front, there are three ways that we could go about working out what is an appropriate amount of cover for you. And the first is to do what we call the analytical approach, where we sit down and we use some calculators and we work out theoretically what the appropriate amount of cover is. Now, invariably when we do that, what it throws up is a number that you don't believe. We tend to find that clients don't believe that number because it doesn't really feel like it's them. The other way that a lot of people in the industry go about it is what I refer to as the wild guesstimate. They come up with a rule of thumb or a multiple and they just apply it willy-nilly to everyone they meet. Now, that's not particularly accurate in my view, and I don't think that's very appropriate in my view either. So I tend to not use that. But what I do think works is using common sense. If we sit down and use our common sense and just spend the money, figure out what it is that's really required by actually spending it. So at time of claim, we can sit down and say, what do we need? Well, we know we need to cover the mortgage. We know we need to allow this much for education. We know we need to replace this much income. So we sit down and we spend it. And by spending it, we do two things. Firstly, we figure out the common sense approach to what you really need, because you're making judgment calls along the way about what you want to use insurance for and where it needs to step in and substitute for lost income or lost capital. And then we'll back that up with some deeper analysis just to make sure we've got the numbers right. And of course, the second thing that it does while we do this approach is that it helps us pin down your budgeting and your cash flow so that we know precisely where your money's going. So the best way for us to go and figure out how much cover is enough is to sit down firstly and use some common sense and let's spend the money. Let's figure out what really needs to come into the household next week if disaster hits. And then we'll back it up with some analysis. And that's the quick tip for today.
Awesome.